Hey guys, welcome to Happy Wax TV. So quick background history on myself. I get a lot of you asking me where the name Happy Wax came from and why I use it. Well, back in the day, back when I was like 15 to like 21, 22, I was a rave DJ. I did a lot of underground house parties, a lot of raves. I had a radio show up at the university here, the University of Western Ontario. It was good times. So whenever I see a movie coming out that kind of revolves around, you know, raves and underground parties and stuff, I always try and give it a watch. Now, unfortunately, for the most part, a lot of those movies are not very good. And I'll give you two examples. It's either House of the Dead 1 or 2. I can't remember which one, but it's the one Uwe Boll did, and it's the one where they kind of congregate on that island for that rave. Fucking terrible movie, and I'm pretty sure if you all know the one I'm talking about. It was based off the video game. And then the other one too was one of the episodes of Night of the Living Dead. I think it was either 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly which number, but it was called Rave to the Grave, and it was fucking horrible too. So I don't know. We haven't had much luck. I mean, there has been a few movies that have revolved around raves and dance parties that have been pretty good, but I don't know. For the most part, they're more or less stinkers. So, anyways, I watched the trailer for this, and I liked it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a watch when it comes out. And I finally got myself a copy of it, and I watched it. So, before I get into this, I'm going to quickly say that as far as this movie goes, it's low budget, okay? And I've learned over time you have to be a little more lenient on lower budget movies just because they simply don't have the budget to pull some of the effects off that they want to. And unfortunately, I think this movie kind of falls into that category. Because, like, I mean, the first act, the first half of this movie, I was right into it. I thought it was great. But it's like from the halfway point to the finale, I mean, it did have some good scenes, which I'll get to, but it loses steam really quick, and it really turns repetitive, which is unfortunate. And it kind of fell into this trap of trying to pull off too much with not enough money, and it just doesn't present itself well, you know, in front of the camera, unfortunately. So... But let's get into who is in this thing. So it's directed by Bernard Poocher, who I am not familiar with, but he does have a few feature-length movies out. And then, I mean, the other thing, too, that kind of pissed me off is Natasha Henstridge is in this movie. Now, we all know who she is. I mean, most notably, she was the star of the Species series. And the way they advertise this, too, I thought she was going to be in this a lot more, like maybe one of the main stars. But nope, unfortunately, she's fallen into this Lance Hendricks style of thing where they get these big stars in and then they advertise their name in hopes to sell the movie. And I get it, but it sucks as a viewer because you're expecting her to be in this movie a lot, especially if you're a fan, and she's not. She's literally in this movie for 2 minutes, and that's it. So that kind of sucked. But the main star of this movie is Becky, played by Georgia Hirsch. And I mean, she is fantastic in this. The acting is not the issue of this movie at all. I mean, the acting for the most part is killer. It's just the fact that they tried to pull off a little too much with with the budget they had. A very quick synopsis. I'll just read it to you. When a contaminated energy drink turns an illegal rave into a nightmare, a germophobic journalist has to overcome her deepest fears to get her friends out alive. Okay, well, this movie all revolves around Becky. She's a germaphobe like no other. There's a scene in this movie at the very beginning, and it's pretty funny actually, because you know how much they're trying to push how much of a germaphobe Becky is. But she there's a scene in her kitchen where she's actually spraying down and wiping down her money, like just everyday money, because she is so afraid of fucking germs. And I think her roommate moves out too because she can't fucking take it anymore. And she makes the comment when she's leaving us, is it always smells like mouthwash in here. Like she's just super fucking clean. But anyways, she gets invited by her friends to go to this rave party. And I mean, she feels bad because her roommates just move out because of the way she is, and her friends are bugging her to do all this stuff, and she just kind of, doesn't do anything. She's almost like a shut-in recluse because of the germs and stuff. Anyway, she breaks down and she goes to this rave party, and that's more or less where the second act picks up. So the first act, we're introduced to Becky and her friends. Quick little background on her, that she's a germaphobe. And then we're also given the very first scene of the movie. We're in this warehouse where this energy drink is produced, and you're shown, why there's so much. of this chemical that goes into this one energy drink and how it reacts to certain drugs, because there's layoffs going on in this factory. And one of the guys, played by Oliver Richter, who's massive, he's got to be a fucking professional wrestler. He's just huge, but they're making it like they're saying he's on steroids, you know. So he's drinking the energy drink while they're doing these layoffs, and you know, trying to foreshadow that this stuff with this extra chemical that was accidentally put into it will react with certain drugs and turn them into these like 28-day style kind of a raging sort of zombie, right? So that scene happens. We're introduced to Becky after that, and then they go to the rave, and that's the start of the second act. So when we're at the rave, and again, I mean, go into this with, you know, the expectations of this is low budget, and for the first while in the second act, I mean, he does a great job of pulling it off. He knows how to shoot his camera angles because there's not a lot of overhead shots because obviously lower budget. He doesn't have like a massive cast, so he keeps the like, you know, the dance, you know, the rave shots kind of in the crowd, so it looks a lot more fuller than it actually would be. Now there are some scenes later on that kind of give away that there really isn't a ton of people in this movie, just because he does have a couple overhead shots of like dead bodies and stuff laying on the ground, and there's, you know, just the crowd doesn't look as big as it, you know, looked in the earlier of the second half, you know what I mean? But whatever, it's lower budget, you know, we have to accept that. It's totally cool. But, and the other thing too, at the beginning of the movie, and I rolled my eyes when it happened. I thought, fuck, I hope the whole movie isn't like this. But there is a beheading scene at the very beginning of the movie, and it's CGI, and it's CGI blood. And I thought, oh God, please don't go this route. And, you know, there is some scenes where there's blood and it's CGI, and I guess maybe they did that. It's cheaper than using practical. I get it. But it did redeem itself, because there is gore at the end of this movie, okay? And there is like one of these zombie creatures that gets burned, and it's like he's melting and going after these people. And I thought, okay, that is cool. I will give respect to this movie for trying to pull that off. As funny and as corny as it looked, it kind of brought me back into it, because like, again, from the halfway point to the end of this movie, it's just repetition. Them trying to escape, them finding miraculously a cure, and then them trying to escape again and save the friends, and it's just kind of over and over and over again in the first, or in the halfway to the end of the third act there. And it just kind of takes you out of it, really. But when this zombie melting creature comes out, I mean, it's good. It really is. So, I mean, again, I didn't hate this movie. It's just I think that they tried to pull off a little more than they could chew. But for the most part, I mean, it's not going to wow you, but it's definitely watchable. To give it a rating, I'd probably give this one like maybe a 5.5. You know, it's right on the cusp. You know what I mean? But again, and I've said this 100 times already, but the first half of this movie, I was right into it. But it's just when we get into this repetition of trying to escape and being chased and then trying to escape, it's just over and over and over again in the half of the second and into the third act, and it just kind of takes you out of it. But again, the acting isn't a problem. The one thing I didn't understand too about the actors is this was shot in the UK, so I'm assuming that most of the actors are going to be British. But they're trying to pull off an American accent. And it happens all the time over here. Like The Walking Dead is notorious for that, for having British actors come over and then making them speak English, like with an English accent. And I'm like, okay, I get it, or an American accent or a Canadian accent. But I'm like, who the fuck doesn't love a British accent? I mean, this movie would have been like that much better. If I've said this all the time, I don't know what it is about accents, you know, whether it's Australian or British or whatever. But for me, anyways, personally, it just amps the movie up. If there's an accent in there, it just makes it that much better. So I don't know why he's got everybody talking, you know, or trying to talk in an American accent. Yes, there are some American actors and actresses in here, but, you know, I think the large part of them are British. So I don't know why you'd have them change their accent. But anyways, that's just me. That's just my opinion. So I'm definitely going to say watch this movie. You're not going to leave, you know, you're not going to finish watching it being wowed by it. But it's, I mean, we're all pretty much inside now, so, you know, give this one a watch. You won't hate it, that's for sure, but you're not going to love it either. But, you know, whatever. If you have seen it, let me know what you think of it. Were you kind of taken out of the movie as much as I was after like the halfway point? But you know, chime in, let me know what you guys think. It's out now, so, and I'm just gonna kind of keep pumping the reviews out here of stuff that I've watched, some old, some new, especially with all the theaters and all the big budget movies getting, you know, shut down for the time being or pushed back. So, I mean, we're gonna really have to concentrate on this video on demand style, and I swear by it. I mean, this is where the good stuff is and all the good ideas are. So, even though this isn't like one of the best movies out, it's good to get you through a couple hours anyways when you're stuck at home. So anyways, it's called Ravers. Let me know what you think if you've seen it. If you haven't, go rent it, come back, let me know what you guys think, guys, and chime in. I'm curious to see what you say about this one. And yeah, as always, stay safe.